Okay, I want to do the doors. As you can see, this one is pretty much done. So when you look at the way I do the leather, um, I wrap the edge all the way around. I wrap the leather all the way around the edge. And I just think that looks a lot nicer than the kit leather. Let's take a look at the kit leather. So this is the kit leather, and you're supposed to put this piece on first, and then that piece goes over top of it. And you look at how they do the patterns, they just cut it. They literally just sliced it, and you're just supposed to glue that on. And that slice is supposed to be like a stitched pattern, I guess. I don't know. Um, but this, if you just glue that on, you're going to have that edge. You're going to have that edge visible on the edge of the door because you don't actually wrap it around the edge of the door. If you like the look of this, then by all means do it. I'm not going to, judge it and say it looks horrible. But if you like the look of this, then by all means use this. I mean, it's what the kit provides, and countless people have used it. It's just that when I look at photos of this, almost every single one of them, after some time, the edges curl up. So you get these gaps between the edge of the leather and the part on the model. Now, don't get me wrong, I've seen it done very well. It probably depends on what kind of glue you use. If you use the correct glue and you get those edges pushed and burnished down very nicely, it'll look nice. It's just that I personally don't like the look of the cut edge. That's why I like to roll the leather around. And, but like I said, you do it however you like it. Personally, I like that better than the cut edge. And I'm repeating myself, I apologize. Anyways, here's the little door that opens. So that pops open. And you use the same fabric that comes with the headliner. And I basically just, this is what they give you. That's what they give you. But if you just use that, the door can just flap open and there's no pocket, there's no sides. So I don't know if we can see it very well, but I made some sides there that kind of fold in. So you actually have a nice pocket plus a backing here. So it's actually a usable little storage pocket door thing. It fits in there nice and firm. And there's also a little pocket here. Now, admittedly, I did not do a good job with that pocket. It's a little bit tight. You can put something in it. Oh, I mean, the kit comes with tools like wrenches and screwdrivers and stuff. I'm not going to force it. I don't want to mess it up. I don't know why you would store wrenches and pliers in your leather pocket on your car door. That just seems barbaric. But, or I don't know. I'll leave it at that. So there is a pocket here, but it's not very usable. You can kind of see the outline of the size of the pocket. But the leather is just too tight and it doesn't open up really. So anyways, let's talk about how to do this. And the reason I went ahead and did the leather now is because I need to have the leather done in order to do the door crank and the window crank, because you can't put the leather around it. And he did buy the cranks from Model Motor Cars. There's the new windshield crank and the exterior door handle and the interior door handle. And I think those are going to be a pain in the butt, because what you have to do is take those kit parts, cut them short, and actually drill in for those shafts to thread into there. Not looking forward to that, but we'll see how that goes once we get there. But we had to do the leather first, regardless. Also, when you look at how the kit works, here's an original panel. Notice there's a screw hole here. There's a screw hole. Well, I got rid of it. It was there, and there's a screw hole here. They want you to drive screws through the leather. It's like, really? So I'm going to do the same way I did on the other one that I did for my neighbor. And I attached these plastic blocks to the edge here. I also, since I'm going to wrap the leather around, I took a little bit off of the perimeter to make room for the excess leather. And on this piece here, I took a little bit off of that dimension. This way I sanded that surface down a little bit again to make up for the excess leather coming around. So what's going to happen then is that then fits on here, and then I will drill in here and use a countersunk screw. And a little countersunk screw. I bought these on eBay a while ago, and they really come in handy. Nice little skinny black countersunk screws, nice for tapping in plastic. multiple lengths, and they're M2s, and I just got a box of those from eBay. They were fairly inexpensive. And so there will be one in here, one into the edge here, and one into the edge there. And again, it'll be countersunk, painted. You'll never even notice them. And I think that would just look so much better than putting screws into the leather here. Not only that, but those screw holes don't even line up. If you line up the front one, this back one here is going to be a screw hole off. I mean, they don't even line up. Also, the curve of this did not match the curve of the door. So you can see where that red is here. I sanded down a lot along here so that curve would match. I also added styrene here to build up the thickness of that edge. And what else did I do? I kind of rounded those edges a little bit so the leather would roll around nicer. And I added a little bit here just to make that a little bit thicker. A little bit here because the plastic was like paper thin right there, so I just beefed that up a tiny bit. And I think, I mean, you can see what I've done, I guess. But after that point, once I saw that it was fitting nicely and I had a little gap there for the leather, then I started with the leather. And you can see how I've got it rolled around the edge. And several tricky areas. Anywhere you have a folded seam coming around, that gets a little bit tricky. I almost cut it too short there. And sharp 90-degree corners, like right in there, can be a little bit tricky. So I'll show you how to do that. And getting the leather around the armrest is not easy, so we'll show you how to do that as well. So we'll basically just use this one, and I'll show you how to do it, or I'll show you how I did it. If you have a better way, that's perfectly fine. I'm sure there's 100 ways you could do it. I'm just going to show you the way I did it. So let's start with this. As you can see, I went ahead and drew the shape on here, and I need to draw one more line. If I can find, there it is. I need to draw one more line, and that is for where those other pieces go. We'll just use this as a straightish edge right about there, like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off here and around here, and then all of this will get covered in leather. By the way, on the first model I did for my neighbor, and I have a whole build series on it, that was several years ago, what I did was I covered this entire piece with one piece of leather, and I rolled the edge around, and then I made these pieces and just glued them on top. So we actually had a rolled edge and then another rolled edge. Notice here I just have one rolled edge. So the leather that you see here, well, that stops here. It only rolls around on that bottom edge. So when I make these other pieces, I leave those edges loose and I glue that on, and then I roll it around. So it comes up a little bit thinner and just looks a little bit nicer. So just put that here. Okay, and I made that a little bit thick just so I could see better where to trim, because I'm going to put the leather on oversized and I need to be able to see where to trim around here. Those will be easier to tell. So again, we're just going to cover this, so we just need to cut a piece of leather big enough. Okay, so we have that and we have that. Now we're going to need some glue. Now as far as glue, there's a few different, well, I'm sure there's several different glues you could use. I just use thick CA. And I put it in a little container, or a little plastic that's just left over. And I use a toothpick. When you are applying your glue, just a very few things, or just a few things you really need to be careful with. Try your hardest to not get it on your fingers. Because if you have glue in your fingers and you touch your leather, it's going to instantly stick to it, and when you peel your finger off, it's going to pull the top layer of leather off. Now, if it's not bad enough, you can fix that with leather dye, but if it's any bigger than, I don't know, a couple of millimeters, you're going to see it, you're going to notice it. And it is very easy to get glue in your fingers and not even notice. So what I would recommend is after every couple of steps, you just wipe your hands with a paper towel. So if there's any glue on it, it'll stick to the paper towel and you'll know it. Or stick your hands in your pocket, and if there's any glue on your hands, then your hands will be glued to your pockets. Or wipe your hands off in your jeans, whatever you can do to make sure you don't have any glue in your fingers, because that is very easy to do, is accidentally get glue in your fingers. So I'm going to position this over it where I want it. I've got plenty to wrap around that edge on the bottom, like that. Also, when you put it around the door handle, that top is going to pull in a little bit. So you got to make sure you have plenty enough that you don't get under that, or you don't get below the level of that tape. So once you have it positioned where you think it should be, you need to also be very careful and accurate and deliberate with your glue. So for example, I'm just going to start with a little bit right at the base of that armrest. I'm not putting very much on. It might look like I am, but that glue does not go onto that toothpick very well, so that is not very much. And I'm going to roll that back, and I'm going to use my fingernail to push that into that area right where I put that glue. And it will cure, it'll grab to that leather pretty quickly. Now the first time I did this on the other door panel, I started with the part up here, and I just took the bottle and squirted a bunch on there and just pressed it all in, and that did not work out well at all. I had all kind of wrinkles I could not get out, and I had to just rip it all off, and that left half the leather behind that I had to scrape and sand off. It was a mess. So make sure you go very deliberately and accurately with exactly where you want it. So now that's stuck there. So now what I will do is the bottom of that armrest here, or more up on the armrest a little bit here. Now one of my commenters suggested another glue for the leather, and I can't remember what he said, wood bond or something. I would like to try that. I just have not gone out and bought it yet. I need to go back through the comments and see what he said, because I'm not sure that he said wood bond. I'm only thinking he said wood bond. I could be misremembering. I very easily could be misremembering. But right now I'm liking the CA because it does grab quickly, which can be good and bad. It's bad because if you don't get it in the exact place that you want it the first time, you're going to have to peel it off and start over. It's good because I don't have to sit here for several minutes waiting for it to grab. All right, so then I want to go ahead and roll around to the top of the armrest, and notice how it's going to bunch up here and here. You're going to have to just work those out, and I don't have any glue on it now. I'm just wanting to see where it's going to bunch the most. But you're just going to have to work those bunches out as best as you can. Now, over here is not too bad because I don't have a lot here where I need the leather. So if it starts wrinkling and bunching out here, that's no big deal. Here, I really got to be a lot more careful. So I think I'm just going to put it on and do it. And I'm starting with the armrest first because this is where it's really going to start bunching up and causing problems. This is the hardest area. This will be the hardest area to get right. So I'm doing it first, so if it gets screwed up, I can just yank it off and try again. Whereas if I started on a flatter surface, I would have more to clean up after I remove it. If that makes any sense. To me, that makes sense. I think that's okay so far. We'll find out as we go a little bit further. All right, and then you got to start thinking about which way you want to go. And I'm thinking I want to go up from about that line up. That way I can lift that up and get that. So that's probably not a bad idea. So basically, I worked the bunching up into here, which will be at the tape, so that'll get cut off. So far, so good. Notice I did not go all the way to the tape. I don't want to do any more than I think I can work with safely, so I'd rather do smaller bits at a time. So now I'll go up to that tape line. I can hold that back. All right, and of course where that's bunched up, that'll get cut off because that's over the tape there. So that'll get cut off. And so now I can start working down this way. Let's see, we'll go right in here. And using your fingernail, push that down into that crease. And I gotta get a paper towel just to make sure I don't have glue in my hands. One of my fingers felt a little bit sticky. So just making sure, because trust me, I've done it on that other car I did for my neighbor. I had to redo a few pieces and touch up a little bit with some of the leather dye. Also, when the glue gets on the leather here, let me show you on a scrap piece. When the glue gets on the leather, you can see it obviously gets dark. Once that dries, that becomes very hard and inflexible. So if I got too much glue here and it started getting out onto here, I would not be able to bend that around, because what I'm going to do is after this is on, after that's on, I'm going to cut an X in here and take those pieces and roll them over the edge to make the opening for that door. But if I got glue along here, that would be too stiff to bend over, and it would leave a big bump on that opening, and it would look horrible. You would have to start over. So again, don't put on too much. Just put on what you need, and you should be fine. And See, I did not plan that very well because I did not leave myself a lot of room to get in under here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to work it in here up to that point to where I can then fold it back that way and get the rest. So I got to work it back into that corner. Now that little area I'm doing right there right now, that's going to make the back side of the pocket. So if somebody did stick one of those tools or something else into the pocket, you wouldn't see the red plastic behind it. You would see leather behind it. So that's just the inside of the pocket there that I'm doing. Now you could just do it without the pocket. I'm only doing it because technically there's supposed to be a pocket, and I forgot it when I did my neighbor's car. Don't tell him. I don't know if he noticed or not, but I forgot to leave a little pocket, even though it's not really usable. I guess technically it should be there. And finally, all right, so there's that. So now I just need to trim around it, and that's just a matter of finding the edge of the tape using a new sharp blade with a straight edge, slicing where the line of the tape is, and then you can see here, since I made the tape kind of thicker, you can see where I'm going to have to cut here. So let me get that trimmed out, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so there it is all trimmed up, and I made this just a piece of styrene, pretty thin, and that sits over there like that, and that will get wrapped with another piece of leather. Now to make this, I basically just laid a tape around here and then pulled the tape off. That looks like that. So there's the tape pattern, just put on the styrene, cut it out, and good to go. Now on the styrene, it is thin, but I sanded that edge down on this side, so it's really thin here. That way, when the leather rolls around, you've got a much thinner edge, and it'll be much less visible as that leather rolls around there. So next step is to cover that in leather. So let me get a piece cut out, and trying to utilize every square inch. So that was an off cut there. That should be enough. That's going to be close here. Should be okay, I hope. Before I go any further, I'll test fit it. I'll go ahead and cut out the hole here. It's close, but that should be enough. We should be good. This side here. Again, as long as it goes over. You know, normally I like it a little bit longer than that, but it'll be good. So now, I want to start by wrapping this inside. So what I want to do is trim this, and we'll just use the scissors here. And I'm going to start with the hardest part right in here. But I'm going to get rid of a little bit more material here. And right here, I'm going to cut in here. Now I'm not going to start right at that peak. I'm going to come out about 2 millimeters or so and just make a straight cut this way. And that's where you have like a 90-degree turn corner and where you have a radius here. I don't typically do right in the corner of the radius. I'll typically do, say, one here and one here. And that usually works out pretty well for me. And so now when I put the glue here, I can just push that around like that. And the leather does stretch a little bit. So I'm going to start here. And when I have an outside corner, I'll just snip that a little bit like that. Now I'll end up doing a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and do this edge around here, straight across. And again, that area right there kind of forms that pocket that probably won't be used, but like I said, that's okay. So you can see we've got that curve here. And then we'll do this line along here. I'm going to trim that just a little bit because I don't really want that over the hole. So I'm just going to come in here. That's what that's looking like on that side. Now for this corner here, now this is going to get rolled over the edge of the door, but I don't want all that extra material. So I'm going to get rid of some of that, not all of it yet. I'll go ahead and stick that down here. So again, this is where that 90-degree bend was, and the leather covers on that corner there. If I would have started to cut right at the plastic, you would see the cut in the plastic there, and you would see it here. So again, the leather does stretch a little bit, so even though that's kind of a 90-degree turn, you can give it a millimeter or two, and that will still curve around, so you won't see it. And this, we can go ahead and fold that over. Now right here, again, where I have outside corners like this, I glued that a little bit too much here because we need to get rid of some of this material. And you'll notice that outside corner is going to bunch up. And what we do is we just cut off whatever's trying to bunch up. And I kind of screwed up because I didn't mean to glue that much on right there. So I need to see if I can get rid of some of that to make room for some of that extra leather that needs to bunch up there. All right, that should be okay. And this is a lot of trial and error. Try something, and if it doesn't work, try something different. Like I said, I'm sure there's probably another way I could be doing this, but this seems to work for me. I've not seen any other guidance online anywhere. I mean, I'm sure maybe there is, but I don't know. I just kind of had to figure it out on my own. Would have been nice if somebody would have had some tips and tricks on how to do it, because I'm sure there's stuff I'm doing that is making it more difficult for me. But there's that corner, looking like that. Not too bad. I didn't do as good a job on that one as I like to try to do, but not too bad. And again, this gets wrapped over the actual door part, so I'm just going to get rid of some of that material because I don't want all that extra thickness when I wrap it around. And every time I cut some off, I'm thinking, I hope that wasn't too much. So that's what we want. Let's see how it fits here. Pretty good, I'd say. That can be pulled down. Everything here is flexible. Yeah, apparently my pattern shifted a little bit. If I make that, sorry, I may widen out a little bit. If I make that top edge right, then it opens up a gap right down there. So it's easier to get this gap right in here, good, where you want it. And then you can pull that down where you want it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue here and get that on exactly where I want it. And once that's dried enough, I'll then lift that up and glue underneath here and stick that down. All right, that'll work for now. And you really only got one shot, because once it's on, it's not going to want to slide around any. And I know what you're thinking, I forgot the door handle hole, and that was on purpose. We'll just say that. Honestly, I did the same thing on this one, and it's easy enough to poke a hole through here, make your hole, no big deal. This one I forgot. This one I did on purpose just to do the same as this one, pretty much. All right, so let's get this one. We'll just let that set for a minute. While that's setting, I just cut a piece of styrene, and I cut a piece of styrene too short. Man, it just barely makes it right there. I did that on purpose too. Now this has to be sanded to be smaller than that because, again, leather takes space. All right, now that needs to be divided into 3 equal pieces. 30. Can't get much luckier than that. So 36 divided by 3 would be 12, right? Yeah, I had to double check that. It's too late in the day. Too late in the day to be doing math in my head. All right, so just need to thin those down a little bit to make room for the leather. So I'm just going to take a little sliver off of each side. Start with that first one. A piece of leather. Yeah, glued my finger to it. Damn it. Sorry, family show. Dang it. Hopefully that didn't go around the edge. Yeah, see, that's what happens when you glue your finger to it. Fortunately, now I'll still dye it just to make sure, but that should be completely unseeable once it's installed. But that's what you got to be careful about. If that would have been on the other side, that's a big enough spot. I probably couldn't have repaired it. If you push on those corners and roll them in, that usually works out. It'll work. I'm going to do the other 2 before I glue that on. Get back with you. Okay, just to show you where I'm at, I went ahead and glued those 2 on. I got that rolled around, and I got that one rolled around. I just have to do this one now. And just wanted to pause here and kind of tell you again how important it is. Make sure you don't have any glue in your fingers, because when I was putting that one on the first time, I didn't realize I had glue on 2 of my fingers. And I got it here and here. And that's actually after I tried touching it up with the leather dye. My leather dye is not the right shade, so you can see that. So if I screw it up, there's no hiding it. I gotta do it again. And so I really gotta slow down, make sure I don't have glue on my fingers, because if that would have happened up here, that would have really sucked, tearing that all off and doing that all over. Or here would have sucked even worse, because that would basically mean starting all over again. So just really be careful, make sure there's no glue in your fingers, because that's a good way to ruin your entire day. So this one, well, that's the drunk one. This one is this corner that will go here, and then after that gets glued on, then this edge, I'll trim that a bit, gets rolled over like everything else. Now, one thing I want to point out, and that is in this area right here, what I did, but I took a Dremel tool and I cut a channel right in here, so when that leather rolls around, it'll tuck into that channel. And yeah, go away. Sorry, I don't know if that's going to show up very well. But what that looks like then is right there. You can kind of see, yeah, I zoomed in so it's all blurry and grainy. Let's try that. So hopefully you can see that better, how that leather tucked into that little channel that I cut with the Dremel tool. Now that tip right there will need to be painted black. And let me go ahead and show you, by the way, what this looks like. So once you put those together, that's what it's looking like that. I'm going to need to do a little bit more fine tuning in here. I'm going to have to sand some of this down in here a little bit so that will sit flatter. That's not bad. That looks pretty good, I think. And that looks good all the way around. I can fine tune that curve around here to match the panel better. See how it's sticking out a little bit? So I can fine tune that a little bit, but I think that's looking pretty good. So anyways, let me get, oh, and this just gets folded around, and I trim that off after I fold it. I only glue it right to there, and then once that folds around, I'll cut that off so you can see what that looks like there. And then for the door, well, we'll get to that door later. So let me go ahead and put that last piece on, fold everything around, and then we'll do the door right here. Okay, so we are ready for the little door in here. So for that, we'll need the door panel, and we'll eventually need the little handle for it, but not quite yet. And this is the piece of fabric that comes with the kit. And the way they tell you to do it, basically they just have you glue that to the door like this, and then that gets glued to the inside of here. So basically that just flaps open and closed, which I don't know. I don't know. There's a better way, I think. And you'll also need just a scrap piece of the fabric, and we'll be cutting that up and to make the sides and the back of the door opening. All right, so the first thing we need to do is cut out the hole here, and a nice sharp blade, and I'm just basically going to cut an X from here to here and from here to here. And again, don't cut right up to the corner. Come out about, I don't know, 2 millimeters or so, and just kind of slice in. And then each one of those flaps will get pulled up and glued to the inside around here. And by not cutting right to the corner, that leather will kind of fold around, and hopefully you won't see any of the plastic in the corner. And you can kind of, let me sand these edges down a little bit. See if that'll push in there. It's a little tight, but it pushes in. Now, obviously I'm going to sand more off when I cover that with the leather, because that's going to add more thickness there. But that'll at least push that leather out along the edges. Then from here, we can start gluing those flaps over. Now I'll try to get these corners a little bit better. It's looking pretty good. now we need to sand this more so that, because right now it fits in there like perfectly tight. You put leather around that, it's not going to fit at all. So we need to sand this down around until you hold it in there. You can see a light gap all the way around. And that's looking okay. The best way to test it is to take a piece of leather and just push it through with that piece. Just make sure there's no, thought I felt a little bit of glue here. That's pretty good. You want it tight enough so it'll hold itself in without any gaps, but you don't want it so loose that it doesn't stay in when you put it in. If it's too tight, you'll have a hard time opening it and closing it. And again, if it's too loose, it'll just flop open. So that's a pretty good fit right there. I'm happy with that. So what I want to do then is go ahead and just glue that on. And one thing that I'm doing here is I had that long and I put just a little glue kind of in the middle and then fold that over, and then I trim it like that. If it's short to begin with, then the glue oozes out, you get more on your fingers. And plus it's just easier to do it this way. So once that's folded over, and I did not put glue in the corners yet, but once that's folded over, I just come in here and trim that back. Now these I want trimmed back a little bit neater than I normally would on the back side of something, because there's going to be fabric on the back side of this door. Now even when you open the door, you're not really going to see the back, but it's going to be easier to put the fabric in if these are trimmed back, and it's going to look better. And there's still too much material in the sides, or in the corners I mean, so go in, trim off that excess. Now what I'm going to do when I glue it, I'll put a little glue in the corner and I'll start here and push that over this way. And when you do that, you see how much material is kind of bunching off. So that is material that's going to get trimmed off. And there's a fine line between just right and too much. So go easy, take a little bit at a time. And I think that'll do it. And when you feel the glue stick to your fingers, use a different finger. That's why you got 10 of them. And when you do feel it glue to your fingers, twist your finger back and forth a little bit till it breaks free. At least that's what I found to be the best method, because if you just pull it off, you're going to rip the leather. So keep pressure down, just twist it back and forth until it pulls free, and you should be good to go. So there's the door. Now you just need to figure out which side's the top, because there's a hole, and I lost track where the hole is. It's either here or here. It's around here somewhere. It's right there. All right. So now that should plug in nicely there. So it holds itself in. It's not going to fall out. It's not too hard to put in. That's what the backside looks like. So we're ready for the fabric. So I'm going to start. Again, don't lose top. And we're going to glue that on like that. Now I'm going to shorten that just a little bit because I want it inside the leather. And yeah, it soaks through the fabric. For an inside part, I think that's okay. And I know this is not the intended way that they wanted you to do the fabric. But it's the way I'm doing it, because in my opinion, it looks better. Now when we glue that bottom, that's going to create the hinge. We don't want to just glue it in with the door shut, because if you glue that bottom part with the door shut, then when you try to open it, it's going to pull on it and you're not going to be able to open it very well. So we want the door slightly open, you know, about where we would want it. Yeah, come on. Then you notice that leaves like a little bit of a ridge right there. That'll help with our hinge. So to make the side flaps, I'm going to glue that in, but only on that edge. So just right here. And we're going to fold this. We're not going to fold it straight this way. We need to fold it up that way. So the fold will start down here in the corner and end right up here. So it's going to fold out like that. And I'm just going to trim that off. And I'll do the same thing right over here. Okay, that's what that looks like. So as you can see, when you push that open, it opens up at an angle like a door should. And we have little side pockets there. There's no back though. So that's what's next. And that's just simply that piece right there will get glued onto the back. All right, so we're ready to put the little knob on. It just threads into the plastic. So there's our door. Opens up, got a nice little pocket inside there, and closes back up easy enough, stays closed. And that is both doors. I have a feeling this video is going to be way too long. I was hoping to do the window cranks and the door handles in this video, but I think those deserve their own video because I have a feeling they're going to have their own issues and challenges, and they're probably going to be a little on the long side as well. So I'm going to end this one here. Hopefully this was not too much of a repeat from what I did, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago when I did the other Mercedes, the first one several years ago. So hopefully it's not too much of a repeat from there. I did do it a little bit different and it's a different color leather, so it's not a complete repeat. But anyway, so those are done, ready for handles and cranks and windows, and that'll be the next video. So until then, as always, thanks for watching.